So this is the Happy House Hunters group. We also answer questions and cater to folks that want to start a short-term rental, so or a mid-term rental. So I just kind of want to give an overview on what we do. We're all things real estate. It's all about real estate investing. So it doesn't matter whether you want to flip, whether you want to be a wholesaler, whether you want to buy and hold. And then if you want to buy and hold, you might want to have long-term rentals. Maybe you want to have mid-term rentals. Maybe you want to have short-term rentals. There's just a million and one ways to make money in the real estate industry. You can just be somebody that serves the real estate industry. For example, we have close to where I live, we have Hocking Hills, and Hocking Hills is great for short-term rentals. It's kind of a vacation spot area. It's a huge metro park area, and there's all kind of caves. And so folks like to go there on the weekends and hang out and vacation. Some folks come in from pretty far away, so they're looking for places to stay while they go hiking and biking and all of that in the Hocking Hills area. But because of that, there have been all of these cleaning companies have popped up, and management companies have popped up. So there's all kinds of ways that you can either be in the real estate investing industry by owning real estate yourself, by doing arbitrage. Arbitrage is where you're going to rent somebody else's real estate, but then you're going to manage it to make some money on it, or something that is just an affiliate to the real estate investors, like the cleaning companies, the contractors, the roofers, the plumbers. So there's, again, a million and one ways to make money in real estate. So when you look across the country, most of our millionaires are made millionaires because of real estate. And so I know for some of you, and again, I don't know your background or your history, but some of you may think, oh my gosh, oh, to be a millionaire. But just think about this. Most of the homes on the market today, if you're going to buy a house to live in, you're going to spend, I don't know, what, 250,000, upwards of 450,000 to buy a house to live in Central Ohio. That's kind of the market. The sweet spot for home ownership here in Central Ohio. And how many of those do you have to own $1 million worth of real estate, when one house is $250,000, or maybe even $500,000 or upwards to $500,000? We just had a house here in Canal Winchester that sold here in the last couple of months for over $600,000. How many of those do you have to own to be a millionaire? So now the only thing I will say, and for those of you that are more experienced that are on here, I'll see your heads nodding in a minute. Sometimes you can look really great on paper, but the cash flow is not there. Sometimes you look like you own a bunch on paper, but you have to have that balance. You have to always make sure that you have that balance, so that again, you can be a little like a little real estate heavy, where you own properties, but maybe you've got too many vacancies at one time that just happen. Right now, I'm going through that. I have more vacancies than what I really anticipated, and it's just the way it happens. I sometimes get one vacancy the entire year, and I have, within 6 weeks, I have 5 vacancies coming up for all various reasons. One family is buying a house. Another family, her dad passed away and her mom has dementia, so they're moving in with the mom to take care of her. I have another family, a young family, that he just lost his job. He got laid off, and so they're moving back in with her mom. And she just found out she's pregnant, and so now they're struggling to find a place that they can afford. So there's all kinds of reasons why your units might go empty. So you just have to be prepared for that when you're coming down this path. That sometimes you look great on paper, but you don't have that cash flow. So you have to have that nice happy medium. And what we're talking about in this group is we go through, starting in January through June. And of course, we're here in June, so we're at the very end of our series. But we talk about how to find the real estate in January. Then in February, we have a different topic each month. Then in February, we talk about how to fund it, meaning how are you going to get the money to buy it? And then how are you going to fix it? And then you can either flip it or you can fill it. And then finally, what is your freedom number? How many of those do you have to do to make that day job optional? I've made my day job optional years ago, but I didn't start till I was 40. So don't forget, it's never too late to start. And so I now just do the real estate. That is where my income comes from. And that's why 5 empties in like 5 or 6 weeks is kind of like, uh-oh. But the good news is that you always can, and we talk about this back in the finding month when we talk about finding, you always can refinance some of those properties. That's always something that you can do. For those of you that started on the BRRRR method, and we're going to let Ethan talk about that because that's kind of how he got started, was on the BRRRR method. I call it the long BRRRR, where I've rented it for 10 years. Now I'm gonna rehab it because my 10-year tenant, they kind of did some damage, which happens. And so now I'm rehabbing and I'm renting again, and now I'm going to refinance, and I'm going to pull some cash out of that. I'm going to pay myself back for that rehab that I just did. I just did a $30,000 rehab. Probably if I add up all my receipts, it's probably closer to 40 because I keep adding, doorknobs and light fixtures, and you just spend 200 and 500, and next thing you know, you've got another 5,000 in it. So my guess is I'm spending more than 30,000, but I'm gonna refinance that, and I'm gonna pay myself back. And after I pay myself back, the new renter then is gonna make my payments, and they're gonna basically pay for their own rehab. They're going to pay me rent for the next several years, whoever I rent it to. And I'm going to get that money back plus some extra. And I'm pulling out 20,000 in cash for myself. So I'm paying myself $20,000 for doing the rehab. And here's the fun part, because when you have a rental, if you're doing the holding, the buy and holding, and Ethan can speak to this too, sometimes it's hard to keep your rents up to market because you don't want to shock your tenant. And rents have just soared in Central Ohio recently. And so what's happening is, if I even raise my tenants 10%, that wasn't keeping up with current market. They could not go somewhere else and rent for what they were renting from me, which is why I keep renters a long time. And so don't be upset when you get somebody to move out, because it's time for a raise. You can go in, freshen that unit up to whatever level it needs freshened up, and you can immediately put it back out on the market at current market rates and give yourself a raise. And so that's what I'm doing with this one. So the good news is, and I'll just give you my numbers for those of you that are listening. And again, I'm in Central Ohio. I know Sherry is over in Pennsylvania. I don't know about Alexis, Elizabeth, Keisha, or Patricia, where you're coming to us from. But I'm in Central Ohio. And here's what I know is I bought this. It's a 5-bedroom house with a 2-car garage, beautiful home. I bought it for $62,000 in foreclosure about 10 years ago. And the house is now, I just got it appraised this morning. I don't know what the appraisal is going to come in at, but I believe it's going to come in at over 200. And so I paid 62. The house is now worth, excuse me, over 200. And it just in the last 10 years, I collected over 100,000 in rent. And so it's a win-win-win. So even though I had to put 30,000+ in it to rehab it, I can't be mad. I can't be mad because I only paid 62 for it. It's now worth over 200. Now that's on paper, which again, you can't pay your bills on what those properties look like on your balance sheet, which is why I say you've got to be careful and make sure that you still have the cash flow. But I had $100,000 of rent income that came in over the last 10-year period. Probably more. I haven't put a pen and paper to that. I bet it was more. And so then I can't be mad that I'm spending $30,000, and I'm able to go in and I'm able to pull cash back out and pay myself and pay off the rehab, and the 62,000 is already paid off. And so it's a win-win-win all the way around. And the property now, once I get my appraisal back, goes back on my spreadsheet at even more. And so that gives me even more clout to pull cash out of these properties because the properties keep appreciating in value. So with all of that said, stay tuned, tap in every month. We're here on Monday at noon. And I just want to look at my calendar to make sure I say the correct the correct Monday. It's the third Monday of every month at noon. And starting in July, you're in a perfect spot because we're starting over. We're starting the series over. So starting in July, we're going to talk about how to find. And then we're going to go through it again, how to fund it, how to find it, how to fund it, how to fix it, how to flip it, how to fill it. And finally, what is your freedom number? And for those of you that know, and some of you may know this, we have Jessie Lang in July, and she chose this topic of finding. Normally I have her on when she's talking about filling, but Jessie is coming on. And I know Sue knows her. Jessie is coming on next month to talk about how to find those deals. So you're going to want to tune in for that. And then we've got Jonathan Robinson coming on how to fund in August. And we're still open for the September fixing and then the flipping. And then in November, I'm going to be talking about the filling. That's kind of my sweet spot is how to fill these units. So with that, I want to introduce Ethan. Ethan started in, gosh, what, 2020? So you haven't been doing this for all that long, am I right?
That's right, yeah.
All right, and you never ask a girl her age, but I'm going to ask Ethan since he's young and handsome and not a girl. How old are you, Ethan?
I'm 24.
24 years old. Oh, to know what he knows. If I knew that at look at Elise.
I know you got me over here shook like, all right now, Ethan. Okay. Goodness, I'm not the youngest of the bunch anymore. I'm proud. I love it. Great work,
Elise,
sir.
thanks for jumping in, Elise. Yeah, Elise is always my baby in the calls. Yeah, she's always the youngest one. So I am just so proud, not that I had anything to do with Ethan's success, but I am just so proud to see someone like Ethan that has figured it out. And we've got some great speakers coming up like Jessie and Jonathan that have figured it out as well. And again, I just wished I would have figured it out sooner, but it's never too late. And so Ethan started buying single family housing, and you started with the BRRRR strategy. Am I correct?
That's right, Kathy. I have a brief PowerPoint. I'd be happy to share it just to keep me on track. I have a tendency to digress.
Nope. I love it. I love
right.
it. What I am going to do is I'm going to make you my co-host, and that way you can share your screen. And Sue, can I make you a co-host as well? You'll have to click through and say yes. I think it'll pop up. And the reason for that is if for now, those of you that are and at least I'm going to make you a co-host. I like to have a few co-hosts, and I'll say this real quick. If for some reason I get bumped off the call, one of you please let me back in, because the co-hosts now have all the same advantages that I have on the call. You can see everything I can see. And so, Ethan, I'm just going to turn it over to you then and tell us a little bit about your background and how you and Kevin met and how you did it and what you're doing today. So I love it. And so you can share your screen, and I will keep an eye on all the guests that are coming in.
Awesome.
Perfect.
Well, thank you very much, Kathy, for having me. It's a real honor to be asked to speak here. I'm not very technologically advanced, so please, if I mess something up, let me know, or if you're not able to see my screen.
Right now, we just see the Zoom. So you'll need to click on whatever link you want us to see. Do you have a tab open already?
Can you see that?
Yes, we see it. Freedom number. Yes, we got it. Perfect.
Yeah. All right. So our company is Red Door Equities, and we have Red Door Equities Management as well. So we own and operate, own and manage long-term rentals, mostly in Central Ohio, in Fairfield, Pickaway, Ross County, and then out in Western Ohio, we have some properties as well. So if you want to scan this, that'll take you to our website. This is my contact info. If anyone has any follow-up questions, maybe after the Zoom, everyone's welcome to reach out. And this is our website as well. So as Kathy had mentioned, I got back from the first initial 9 months of active duty training in the Marine Corps, where I had met my now partner, Kevin. And this around. I was working in 2021, making $14 an hour as an EMT. I was doing something. I saw it as a means to an end. I was going to try to be a firefighter, but just very unhappy. And I thought it'd be good to give a little backstory to see, how we started, and hopefully it paints the perspective that really anyone can do it. So I spend a little time on the backstory and then get into the freedom number. So I was 21 years old, high school educated. I had no real marketable skills. I think I probably could have gotten a labor job close to $20 an hour. In 2021, we decided, my partner, Kevin Kozak, and myself decided to start a real estate company focused on long-term rentals and then fix and flips, both of which we would have to acquire using the BRRRR strategy, which is buy, rehab, rent, refinance, and repeat. Because we didn't have capital. We were pretty capital constrained. I saw real estate as an opportunity to let me leverage people, capital, tech, and time, something that you wouldn't find in a normal day-to-day W-2 type job. We did a lot of education between 2019 and 2021 on real estate. We read BiggerPockets books, listened to their videos on YouTube, a lot of podcasts, and then by March of 21, we had decided that it wasn't benefiting us to continue to learn, and we actually had to take action and, have those learning through doing type experiences. Robert Kiyosaki, financial leverage is the advantage rich have over the poor and middle class. I read his book, probably as many of you have, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And I would say that was the second most influential book I've ever read that really put us on this path of owning property and creating a business over it. We're not just investors, we are business owners, which I think is a good distinction because it makes you refine your operations and treat your investments like a business. So I quit my full-time job with no properties and less than $10,000 in savings, March 1st of 21. We call it burning the boats. Kevin followed me soon after, quit his full-time job, and we dove into real estate, really head first. It's quite a motivator, though it's not something that an adult with responsibilities should probably do. I was 21 at the time. I owned my own house. I was paying $400 a month for a mortgage. I could have failed pretty easily and started back up. So that's the way we looked at it. So it's like, now's the time to fail. And so
you figured you could just go out and get a job if you had to.
Exactly. Right.
Yeah.
There's a time in your life to fail, and the younger you are, the lower that threshold is to recover from. So that's why we did it this way. And for us, so far, it's worked out well. So we purchased 15 properties in 2021, one of which was a 20-unit apartment complex. This guy here. We still have this in our portfolio. This is one of the better assets that we own. And we BRRRR'd this.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, it was a really good property, especially for some 21-year-olds. We renovated all the units and refinanced it 14 months later, paid off all the private investors, and like I said, still own that to this day. It's currently 100% occupied for the first time in a while. But so currently Kevin and I own 110 rentals ourselves. Those are doors long-term here in Central Ohio. And then we're minority partners on another 164 units. And then we flipped around 35 to 40 properties and wholesaled some more. Our main business, though, is the rentals. We kind of flip to substitute the lack of cash flow and have more active income to continue to acquire properties.
Okay, that goes back to that balance where you can look really great on a spreadsheet where you own all this property, but you don't have the cash flow. So by flipping is how you get cash flow. Am I correct? And the wholesale.
That's exactly right. I think that with long-term rentals, especially here, we focus on like higher C-class properties. So better properties, but they are still C-class assets.
Explain the asset categories. A lot of our listeners may not understand what a C-class means.
So here in the markets that I'm in, an A-class house or A-class multifamily property is going to be newer construction, maybe within the last 5 years. It has some sort of amenities. It's going to be usually a bigger complex that has on-site management. B-class would have less amenities. It would be an older vintage. probably still large enough to have on-site management. C class is when you get into like the 1970s, 1980s builds that are either metro oriented or workforce housing. And then D class would be kind of your slummy properties. So either all metro, kind of run down, older vintage, no amenities, that type of property. So, and as you are doing the BRRRR strategy, you'll find that you're going to be higher leverage when you have these properties. So you'll be 70 to 80% leverage when you're refinancing these with bank debt, which is going to eat at your cash flow. So your cash flow per door will actually be less than what it would be for someone who's owned these properties for 10 years. Or if you had put down a larger amount on the purchase instead of pulling all your capital back out, which is the model that we had to do because we didn't have the money to leave in the properties.
Right.
So,
And just so our listeners kind of understand that, the house that I'm talking about that I've had for 10 years, because I bought it at 62 and now it's worth 200 or more. Again, I just got the appraisal this morning. I'll have to wait and see by around Wednesday what it came in, but I'm expecting it to come in around 220 to 230. And even though I paid 62 for the property, so I can borrow some money out of there without pulling all of my cash out. I can leave a lot of equity still in that property. Whereas Ethan, what you're saying is that you guys pulled out almost all, if not all of your equity to pay off your private lenders.
exactly.
That helped you buy that property to begin with.
Right. And we would equity strip with the intention that both Kevin and I have a very low cost of living right now. And it's going to stay that way for another 3 to 5 years, probably. And so by doing this, it allows us to acquire more properties. So 3 to 5 years from now, we can leave more equity in the deal and have a cash flow stronger when we do want to be working less, if that makes sense.
Yes.
And feel free to jump in if there are any questions along the way.
Yes. Anyone that's on the call, you feel free to just unmute and ask Ethan a question. Absolutely.
Yep. So in 2021, when we started, I saw real estate as a means to the end. I wasn't planning to be passionate about it. I thought it was something that, I would do and I'd be 40 with my ties on the beach. I think a lot of people probably have that intention when they start something. Since then, though, I think it's, we've become pretty passionate about it. We really take pride in the properties that we own and the business that we run. And another thing that I've found is that like people were meant to work. We weren't put here for leisure. We were put here to do something with our lives. And I think that makes us, have more drive and take more care of the things that we own. So again, we're not just trying to retire early. We're trying to build something that, we find meaningful.
Ethan, that's interesting that you say that, because I wrote a blog post not too long ago about be careful what you wish for when you're wishing that you could be retired, because I think you have to have a purpose in life. And that was really tough for me when I decided I was going to retire in 2017 and just do the real estate. The real estate gave me some purpose, but by having these Zoom calls and trying to encourage other folks to have that freestyle life as well, actually turned into my purpose. So I get that. You be careful what you wish for. If you just want to sit on the beach with Mai Tais, that sounds perfect for about a week.
Right. It's an unfulfilling lifestyle, I believe.
Yes.
So to get into nuts and bolts, how do you make money in real estate? These are 4 of many ways that you can do it, but these are the 4 main ones that I came up with. Rent, so the income that the property generates. Appreciation, and this can be done several different ways. So values rise over time, either due to inflation, which is them continuing to print money. Everyone that's owned property for any given length of time has benefited from them printing money, because your mortgage amount doesn't change, but the value of the dollars that you're paying back to the bank over 5 years or 10 years is going down in value. And then you also have micro and macro economics. So we predominantly invest in secondary markets around Columbus, which is the fastest growing metropolitan in the Midwest. And so we've seen our property values rise over the last 3 years that we've been in real estate. regardless of anything that we've actually done to the properties, solely because there's more demand for those properties in these secondary markets. And then you can also get appreciation through forced value add. This would be going in, renovating a unit or renovating a property, and then increasing on commercial. You would increase the net operating income, which is how commercial real estate's evaluated. On a single family, it would be, going in and renovating it to a nicer quality. And that's how you can force appreciation. You call that value add. It's one of the ways to add value. Principal pay down every time you're making your monthly payment. Part of that money is yours. The bank's just holding it in the form of equity. So you're paying down the debt that you owe on the property. So that also is a form of income. And then depreciation, which is a passive loss. You can write off 100% of the value of a property, not including the land, over a given amount of time, and that's determined whether it's a single family residential or a commercial, different timelines there. But that loss, if you're a real estate professional, which means you do this as you're living, that can actually offset your active income. So if you're flipping properties or trading Bitcoin on the side, those losses will actually offset your active income. So even though it's a passive loss, I would consider that income as well.
Good point. That's a good point.
So this isn't Merriam-Webster's version of this. This is just what I put together. But I think financial freedom is having enough income, not just to replace the income or your current costs, but your projected costs for down the road. And so when you're thinking of financial freedom, the way I think about it is you have to consider what your current income is. You have to consider that they're going to continue to print money. So you have to adjust for inflation over time, even if that is 3 to 5% annually. You need to underwrite for that because the income that you need today to survive won't be enough in 10 years. Lifestyle inflation. So, down the road, I'll want an air-conditioned house or a nicer vehicle. Those costs are going to need to be underwritten for when you are planning that financial freedom number. And then any additions to your family, if you're going to have kids. Personally, I'll have kids in 2 to 3 years. I don't imagine they're going to be cheap, so I just want to underwrite for them. And then charity and family inheritance, depending on when you want to leave, money to your kids, and then any charitable acts you want to do, and at what stage in life you want to do those. Just things to be, planning for when you are thinking about that financial freedom number.
Those are all great ideas.
So passive income. Now this is Merriam-Webster's version here, but passive income is a business owner that does not actively participate in the generation of income. And that's great, but owning rental properties is not truly passive. I think that's one of the biggest lies you'll hear when you're building your empire. Now, it can be more passive for some people than others, but if you're capital constrained like we were on the front end, we didn't have $1 million to go out and buy $5 million worth of property and let an asset manager and a property manager actually run the operation of it. So if you're starting with capital constraints, be ready to work, because it's going to be very hard to build, a large portfolio that you can retire on if you're not willing to be active. And that's, like I said, why we treat what we do as a business and not as an investment. And again, there is a distinction there.
Ethan, that is also a good point. On this last one that we did, we paid for some of the stuff to be done. We had a main water line break between the house and the street. So of course we paid somebody to come out and dig that out. Mark's almost 80 and he didn't want to go out there with the shovel and start digging. Although he did the first day to see where the leak was, because that's just how he is. But we ended up doing our own painting. We ended up doing our own laminate floor installs. We ended up doing, all of the kitchen cabinet painting. I mean, we did all of that ourselves, just the two of us, because we kind of like doing it. Right. And it did save a lot, and it helps with the cash flow. And so we don't mind that. It's part of like you said, it's part of just rolling up your sleeves and doing what you can do or what you have the skill set to do.
And there's pleasure derived from work, I think. We don't do much on the renovation side ourselves anymore. But every now and then when we go out and actually work, there is pleasure to look at the end of the day at this, what you've accomplished, and it does feel good sometimes. So there's certainly.
Yes, it does.
So this is just an example I came up with here. But this is pretty obtainable. Like I said, this is kind of an idea we had in our heads when we had started, that we wanted 150,000 a year freedom number, and our rents would adjust for our increased cost of the increased cost of inflation, not lifestyle inflation. So if you were 50 doors average per unit, we see nicer C-class stuff in our markets trading at 75,000 a door. These are all newly acquired BRRRR properties, we'll say. So you're at 80% loan to value. That means the bank has a mortgage on 80% of the value. So your portfolio value would be 3,750,000. It means you have 3 million in debt and 750,000 in equity. And you can absolutely do that through the BRRRR strategy without any personal funds, similar to what we've done. We're figuring 7% bank rate now. That's where we see some of these credit unions coming back for commercial loans.
And I've seen some between 7 and maybe 8.5, somewhere in that.
Yep.
Okay, Elizabeth, we see that you have an appointment. Thank you for being with us. We see that you're going to jump off for your appointment, but thank you.
And then 3% appreciation. We figure the property values kind of climb between 2 to 3%. And then I'll show the model that I used here, but I didn't include rent appreciation because I also didn't include cost of inflation. So even though you will have rent appreciation, as Kathy had mentioned, in our markets, it's really been rather high, low double digits the last couple of years. You also have an increased cost for unit turns, for taxes, insurance. All of these things have also continued to rise. So I didn't include that in the model, but that is something to be cognizant of, that you will have rent growth, but you also have expense climbs. And then we did 1 1/4 rule here. So you're at $940 a month in rent, which is also very realistic for a $700 or $75,000 unit in our markets. I ran this at a 45% expense ratio for, a mom and pop operator that manages them themselves, that doesn't have any employees. You could probably be in the high 30s. But just to be comfortable, I ran that at a 45%. And that's $118 per door a month net. So that's all you make, which is really low. And as Kathy said, if she had pulled out all the equity on that property that she had just described on this refinance, she would have less per door monthly income. So she's leaving the capital in there and getting the cash flow. You don't really have that option when you're BRRRRing, because you need to recoup those funds initially to pay back that private money. So be ready to have less per door monthly income on the front end. And as you pay that loan down, refinance to a lower rate, you'll see that number creep up over time. So that only leaves you with $70,000 a year in true net income with this model.
Which is still, when you look at what the averages are in Central Ohio, that is still a great annual salary.
Absolutely. But that being said, back to the other ways that you make money in real estate. This is the calculator I used here. You can kind of see what I had plugged in. I just ran this as vacancy to use the percentage for my expenses instead of trying to do property taxes, insurance for this scenario. So by year 5, right here, you'll have 1.5 million in equity. You could comfortably equity strip in the form of a refinance and pull out 600,000 in cash, get a new loan on the property. And personally, we plan to do this as rates come back down. You're equity stripping, and now you have a lump sum of cash to offset the lack of earnings there. So 600,000 over 5 years is a decent amount of money that is offsetting the 70,000 instead of the 150, if that makes sense.
Yeah, but I have a tendency to not want to put that in as my income. I have a tendency to want to buy more property.
As do we, and I think there's certainly a stage in life for that. You know, there's no tax on debt. And so currently that's what we do as we hit refinances, we pay off the private money and buy more properties. Down the road, though, we'll probably look to be more cash flow heavy and slow down on the acquisitions. And so those lump sums will be used for the lifestyle inflation and, you know, paying ourselves. But
Yeah, my freedom number is I pull out just enough that I need to live my lifestyle. We like to travel a couple of international trips a year, and we bought a condo in Florida and we go down there, you know, every 4 to 6 weeks. And so I want to pull out enough that my lifestyle is comfortable, but then I'm totally okay with putting the rest of it right back into more real estate.
Right. And then I just modeled this for a 20-year hold period with an 8% cost to sell. And so after profit when sold, you'd be over $5 million after holding this for 20 years. And that doesn't include the income that you would be generating during the hold period. And you can see those numbers right here. This will be your cash flow during the hold period, is this column. So that's not something that I could have replicated in anything aside from real estate. Again, with the experience and the, you know, lack of marketable skills at 24 years old. So that's where, for me, the real estate was the real value, was in the leverage that we derived there. Now, variables to this include your freedom number. So the higher the freedom number, the more properties you'll have to have, or the more cash flow per door you'll have to have. Net income per door. So you can certainly buy assets that outperform, you know, $120 a month in true net income per unit. Your loan to value, and then your portfolio value, interest rates, and then cash on hand. So the average demographic of the people that I often talk to are capital constrained, but if you had $1 million to go buy $5 million worth of assets, you don't need to do the BRRRR strategy. You can go find on-market deals that would get you to your freedom numbers significantly faster and with less work, but most people just don't have the capital to do that. And then building a portfolio, a larger portfolio with little cash, you're going to have to figure out how to add value. For us, we've added value in 2 main ways. That's either through renovations, where we're going in and renovating a property, increasing the income, or through operational efficiencies, where we're lowering the cost to operate the building. You can also build a portfolio with creative financing, partnering, or taking cash from an active income source and rolling that to real estate to build a portfolio. This is just the link for a pretty generic rental property calculator. You can use that to put your numbers in there and see what's going to work for everyone's freedom number, and play around with that if you are seeing higher per door net income or less. And then thinking about this yesterday, I think that building a real estate portfolio that you can retire on is obtainable with work, money, and patience. The less money that you have, the more of the other 2 you'll need, if that makes sense. You'll be required to work harder and have more patience if you have less money, and the vice versa would apply there as well. If you have more money, you don't need as much patience. But that's pretty much all I had there. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I am going to stop the sharing so that we actually can see everybody. And any questions from anyone? I know on the property that I was just describing that you know, Mark and I are in the middle of rehabbing, and we just got an appraisal on it this morning. I reverse engineered mine, and I decided that I wanted at least $500 a month cash flow. And then because that's kind of my goal on all my doors. I want every door to cash flow at least 500. And that way I don't have to have as many properties as the folks that are cash flowing, the 120. So I'm cash flowing 500. That's my goal. So I reverse engineered it and I said, if I want 500, first of all, I had to decide what is the market rent for this property once it's fixed, once it's totally rehabbed. What is the market rent for that? Then I had to reverse engineer that and back out my 500 and say, okay, that's my paycheck every month. And then I said, how much can I pull out of this equity? How much can I actually borrow to where my payment, my principal, interest, taxes, and insurance then gives me that 500 cash flow that I want. How much can I put into my, and for those of you that are in the industry, into my PITI, my principal, interest, taxes, and insurance. Once I had that number, then I could go to the calculator that Ethan shared, and I could say, okay, this is, and again, reverse engineering. This is what I want my payment to be. How much can I borrow at what my lender's interest rate is to get to that number? And so that's how I decided how much cash I was pulling out. And I'm able to pay off totally my original loan that I bought the property for 10 years ago. I still had like a $30,000 balance on that. I can pay off all my rehab. I can pay myself back where I took a little bit of money out of my savings to do the rehab. And I can put $20,000 in my pocket. And I can re-rent it and still cash flow $500 a month. So that's how I reverse engineered how much I was going to pull out of my property. I started with the end in mind. I don't know, is that helpful for some of you that are already investing? Okay, any questions?
I have a
Do.
question. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, you can go.
Okay, I was just wanting to know, do you think I am a new investor? I'm just getting started. How do you think the I'm in Columbus, Ohio too. How do you think the Columbus market is doing? Do you think it's getting a little dried up? I know the prices for rental is going up, but as far as buying houses in areas that's up and coming, do you think that's starting to kind of be slim pickings?
So personally, we stay out of main metropolitans because of the competition there. We see institutional investors and investors that have more backing than what we have buy things that make it less competitive, if that makes sense. And so that's why our market is usually 35 minutes outside of a main metropolitan. For us, it's Columbus, where we still have mom and pop owners that haven't adjusted to Columbus pricing yet. We're still buying stuff under 50 a door, 60 a door, and that allows us to force that value add. And we're kind of riding on the coattails of Columbus in the sense that we're appreciating with Columbus, not as rapidly, but we are seeing similar appreciation to Columbus. And there's just less competition down here.
And I'll also speak to that, Keisha. Again, as what Ethan indicated, is that you've got a lot of investor competition inside Columbus proper. Because we all know, all of us that are in this investing community of real estate, we all know with the things that are coming into the Central Ohio area that housing is going to be very sparse. It's going to be limited, and we're seeing that now. Even
Right.
the properties that are for sale, when you even look at what's on the market on the MLS, there is a lot less properties hitting the market. The inventory is way down. Folks are moving into the area. I don't know. Can somebody tell me the number? How did I hear that there's going to be like another 100,000 people move into Central Ohio in the next 24 months or something like that, to take all of these warehouse jobs and everything that's coming into Central Ohio? Where are they going to live? So the investors that have deep pockets are gobbling up everything that hits the market because they know that they're sitting on a gold mine. And so for small investors like us on this call, I'm assuming we're all small investors, it's hard for us to compete with some of those big boys. And so that's why what Ethan is saying is if you can cast your net a little wider and get just outside that Columbus, Ohio market, and purchase some stuff there, it's going to appreciate right along with Columbus, maybe not quite as quickly, but your entrance price is going to be a whole lot less to get into those properties. I just bought a property down on the Ohio River. And again, I'll give you an example. Sometimes you have to know something that no one else knows. I know that there is such a thing in Ohio, what's in all of the states, but we're talking mostly Ohio here today, is that there's a thing called Main Street USA, where these little cities can get a grant from not only the state, but from the federal government to kind of fix up their downtown areas to bring in more stores and little shops. And so to bring people to that area. And so if you know of a little town that's on the cusp of getting that grant money, you can buy some properties really inexpensive, and you can take several months to fix them up, out of pocket even. So we bought a house down in Middleport because Middleport is just now applying for their Main Street grant. And part of the Main Street grant criteria is that the town that gets the grant has to bring in 2 festivals a year. They have to have a gazebo. They have to have some downtown green space. And for all of us that are on this call, you can drive through a little town and whether they've used the grant money or not, because they've got cute little street lights and inlaid brick on their crosswalks, and their buildings are all freshly painted in the downtown. And so you're thinking, oh, they've already got their grant money. And you can drive through a community until they haven't gotten their grant money yet, or they haven't applied. And so we know that Middleport is in line to get their grant money. So we bought a 2-story brick house for $26,000. I paid for it on a credit card. I took out my credit card and bought a house for $26,000 because I had a $30,000 credit card limit, and I bought a $26,000 house on my credit card. And Mark and I are just doing the rehab because we know it's going to take a couple of years before Middleport gets their whole downtown dressed up. And so it's not a rush for us. And we're just rehabbing that house basically out of pocket. I didn't borrow any money. First of all, the credit card, I had a 24-month at 0% interest. So that was like a free loan for 24 months. So I just took my 26,000, divided it by 24, put it in my bill pay. So I'm not going to pay any interest on the money. I used the bank's money instead of my money. I just made those payments at 0% interest, and now we're paying out of pocket to rehab it. And Mark and I we've already done the painting on the outside. We're going to do all the electrical ourselves. We're going to do all the plumbing ourselves. We're going to do all the drywall ourselves. We're going to do all the floor coverings ourselves, the appliances, the cabinets, everything's going to be just the 2 of us. And we go down and it's fun. And I have to agree with Ethan. We get excited. We can't wait. Are we going to the river this weekend to work on the house? We get excited about it. And we're right on the bike trail. So then we get our bikes out, we ride up and down the bike trail along the river. And then we sit on our balcony. This house has a little balcony. We sit on our balcony and we watch the river boats go by, and drink our morning coffee on the balcony and watch the river boats go by. So it's kind of a fun thing. And after a while, and here's what I want to instill in everybody when you're talking about freedom, what you do for fun and what you do for work, it's hard to tell the difference. When we go on vacation, guess what we do? We look for properties because we love it. We find ourselves scouring the neighborhood going, okay, what can we buy here for $26,000? Because we love doing it. And so we say that to each other all the time. We're sitting on our balcony looking out over the Ohio River, and we look at each other and say, are we working or playing right now? We can't really tell the difference. So that's what I wish for all of you, that's what your life becomes, and it just becomes fun. So to answer, Keisha, your question is cast your net a little wider and maybe look at some of these smaller towns out around Columbus. Is that helpful?
It is. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Sue, you had a question.
So Ethan, I think I missed it because I took a phone call. Where specifically are you investing right now?
Mostly in Fairfield County, Ohio, about 30 minutes south of Columbus.
Got it. And do you self-manage?
We do.
Perfect.
We took that over March 1st of this year. We didn't manage for the first 2 years of our holdings.
You did not?
We did not know.
Oh,
And
Yeah.
that allowed us to grow quickly, but we found that no one cares about your properties like you do. And
exactly.
we are going to take pride in what we own. It's
Mhm.
better to manage and really have a tighter leash on them.
Very good. Great job.
Yes, good, good, good. I self-manage as well. And with mine doing the self-managing, like Ethan said, you can keep a little tighter reins on what's going on. And of course it's a little more cost effective, and it keeps you, I think, you know, right on the front lines. It lets you know what your tenants are looking for, what their concerns are. And I think it just makes you a better property owner when you self-manage. And again, it's not for everybody, but I think you should self-manage at least at some point in your career, so that you know when you do decide to pay somebody else to manage for you, you know whether they're doing a good job or not. It's hard to know if you've never done it yourself, to know what your standards are. So I think that's important. So Sue, do you self-manage currently?
Yes.
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 Okay. Yeah. And when I talk about the filling part of our finding, funding, fixing, when I get to the filling part, I talk all about easier ways to self-manage. There's some software out there that you can use that just makes your life so much easier than trying to do it manually. I still run into these old school landlords that, you know, they're still driving around picking up cash every month on the first of the month. And I can't even imagine that. So there's a lot of ways to simplify your life and run it like a business. Like Ethan said, you have to run it like a business. And most of the time when I talk to landlords, the biggest complaint is that you hear all the horror stories, like, oh, I get calls all hours of the night, or, oh, they don't pay their rent, I got to chase them for rent. You can eliminate all of that with the correct management tools today. So don't let that scare you from being a buy and hold investor. Anyone else?
No questions, but thanks for the presentation, Ethan. Really
Thank you
helpful.
so much. I appreciate it.
Yes, yes, it's great, great. So anyway, Sue, tell the group where are you located? Or you're Central Ohio as well?
Mhm. Right outside of Columbus. I live in Westerville.
Okay, and
And-
where are most of your properties?
We have 2 on the south side, 2 in Westerville schools, but Columbus taxes, and 1 condo in Westerville and 1 commercial building in Westerville.
Okay,
So-
so you're nicely diversified there. Good for you.
Mhm.
Yeah. Now, Ethan, when you describe yours, how many are in these multi units and how many single families? I mean, how diversified are you with your investors?
I would say 70% of the 70% of the units are commercial multifamily, and then the rest are small multifamily or single family residential. Recently acquired a commercial building and then are in contract on another one. So,
Okay. Okay.
but almost all long-term. Well, actually,
Okay.
all long-term residential.
Now I'm even more diversified. I have some commercial because I started with beauty salons. So I started with commercial. My very first investment was a building to use as a beauty salon. So I have some commercial. I have the rest is residential. And then in the residential, I have long-term, midterm, and short-term. So I am very well diversified. And I am I have 28 doors in 5 different counties, but all Central Ohio, with the exception of 1 condo in Florida. Everything else is Ohio. So, so again, I'm very well diversified, and I kind of like that because it keeps your income like this instead of it's all rented or it's all vacant. It's all rented or it's all vacant. So I like it that, you know, I have some 4 families, some 3 family units, and that way, you know, if 1 unit goes empty, the other 2 are still rented, and it just keeps, you know, keeps the cash flow a little more even. So Elise, how about you? Tell the group where you are and what you have.
Hello, and I am a buy and hold. I have a duplex, so 2 doors, and I'm house hacking. So that means that I live in one side and I rent out the other. I want to get into more small multifamilies, and I'm looking within an hour of Columbus, but I am
Mhm.
open to um further out. So yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Now, Elise also self-manages and she is a virtual assistant. So if you're starting to get some properties and you don't want to go with a big property management company, you can hire an assistant to help you self-manage, and that would be Elise. She is my backup when I travel out of the country. I make sure she has the keys to the kingdom. So,
And
so in case
know how
something
to make
happens.
those beds. Love it. Gotta
So if
love it.
something happens, she can be my backup. So anyway, and she uses the same software I use, and so she can tell if somebody's paid their rent or if they've got a maintenance inquiry or whatever. She can take care of that. So Elisa is a good person to have in your back pocket. So I'll just toss that out there. Um, I don't know if Sherry can hear us. Sherry sometimes is multitasking. So Sherry, jump in if you do. Alexis, where are you coming to us from? And Alexis may be multitasking as well. If you can hear us. Patricia, how about you? Where are you coming to us from? Columbus, I think you said.
Yes, Columbus, Ohio.
Okay, and do you have some properties already?
No, I'm new to real estate investing, so I'm just
Okay,
getting started as well.
all right, good, good, good. You're in a good spot. You're in a good spot. And remember, we're going to start next month in July. We're going to have a whole presentation on finding. So if you're if you're just getting started and you're trying to find the deal, we've got Jesse Lang, and Sue can attest to this. Jesse can tell you how to find it. Jesse can tell you how to find some of these properties that are in your budget. So definitely
Okay,
tune in.
great. All
Yeah.
right, great. Thanks.
Yeah. Keisha, how about you? Where are you coming to us from?
I'm here in Columbus, Ohio.
Okay, so you're Columbus as well. And are you already started in investing?
When I say new, I started in January, taking some training classes, and I am right now at the stage of where I am trying to lock down some contracts. But the
Okay.
reason I asked about the Columbus area drying up is because there's slim pickings out there. Like there's really nothing that I could even consider. I don't know. I'm just
Now,
having a hard time locking in on a property and sealing a deal with the contract.
now, when you're talking about contracts, are you trying to get into contract to buy one for yourself to buy and hold, or are you trying to get a contract as a wholesaler? Where is it that you're trying to enter
Both.
in? Okay. So
I'm
you're
trying to do
looking,
both. Yeah.
okay, so you're trying to wholesale. And for those of you that may not know what that is, let me ask you this. Are you licensed? Are you a licensed realtor?
No, I'm not, but I'm working with one.
Okay. And
Yes.
so Keisha would be the finder, and she would find the property, and then she would put it out to all of us as investors, and she'd say, hey, I got this great property. Is anyone interested in in buying this contract from me? And what she collects, then it would just be a finder fee. And now that's
Right.
oversimplified. It gets a little more involved in that, but that's oversimplified. But that's kind of where she is. So you're out there, and again, tap in next month with Jesse, because Jesse will tell you how to find some of those deals. And Jesse, oh gosh, Sue, how many has she added to her portfolio? Something like 70 properties in the last
Yeah. 40,
few months.
yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
So yeah, so she'll speak to that on the finding part, on
Okay.
helping you find those. But then because you're looking at so many and you're out there, driving for dollars or however you're looking for these properties. And Ethan, you do some wholesale as well. Am I correct?
We've done some in the past, yeah.
Okay, so how are you actually finding? Now you're casting your net a little outside the Columbus area, but what is your best way to find those properties? Are you driving around? Are you working with other wholesalers? How are you finding these properties?
Yeah, a little bit of both. We've purchased properties in the past from wholesalers. Actually, we've only bought one on-market property.
Okay.
Really direct to seller is the way to go. If you're gonna get equity on the purchase, and have less competition on the purchase, you have to go direct to seller. A couple ways to do that. You can pull lists of properties, owners that have, higher equity, vacant properties. You can drive around, find which ones are rough, things like that. Yeah, we utilize the code enforcement lists are really handy. You can get lists of properties that have violations out there, properties that are delinquent on their taxes, things of that
Mhm.
nature, and then just get in touch with the seller.
And,
Yeah,
and,
but-
and you have a seller that's more likely interested.
Exactly. It shows
Yeah.
motivation.
Yeah. So Keisha, I hope that helps you find some of those deals. So there's lists you can purchase. And again, just good old fashioned driving for dollars, driving around and finding properties that are not being mowed, that look like they're vacant, and then just doing that background work, finding out who is the owner and getting in touch with them. And so you get it. It takes some effort. But maybe too, cast your net a little wider, maybe outside the Columbus market.
Okay. I appreciate that. Thanks so much.
Yeah. Adrian, can you unmute? How are you doing? Oh, he's working. Okay, so he's listening in. He's multitasking today. Adrian is also one of our happy house hunters, and he has a rental. And so he is a relatively new, for a couple of years, investor, and he is looking to expand his rental business as well. So thank you, everybody, for being here. Any questions for Ethan before we go? Ethan, I want to say thanks.
Thank you very much for having me.
Yeah, thank you. And again, I'm just so excited to see some young folks on here. Most of you are younger than me. So I'm really happy to see that you're getting into the real estate investing business. When I turned 40, my mother at the time, she's passed since then, but at the time told me that I needed to get on with it because she basically was telling me I wasted 20 years and didn't really acquire anything for myself. And she said, in another 20, it's going to be time for you to retire. And she said, what are you going to retire on if you don't start doing something? Because I was a nail tech by trade, sitting behind the nail table in a beauty salon. And so that's when I decided that I needed to purchase my first piece of real estate so that I would at least have rental income from one property in 20 years. Because I took out a 20-year note. I just went to the bank, used my own money as a down payment, used my own income to qualify, and just got a good old-fashioned loan and bought my first commercial building and moved my salon into that building. And then I had a booth rent salon where all of my stylists rented a chair from me. And I basically let my booth renters buy me a building. And it worked so well when I saw what was happening, because again, the building started to appreciate, the loan started to go down and the value of the building started to go up and my cash flow started to get better. And so I said, maybe I need to do this again. So I bought a second commercial building in another little town and hired booth renters, stylists to rent a chair from me and let them buy me a second building. And then 2 years later, I did it a third time. And then 2 years later, I did it a fourth time. And then 2 years later, I did it a fifth time. And I ended up retiring with 5 paid for commercial buildings. And my staff basically bought me real estate. And I did it the old fashioned way, just going to the bank, using my money, my down payment, and getting a loan. And I ended up with 5 paid for commercial buildings. So once that cash flow started coming in, I thought, well, now what am I going to do with the cash flow? Isn't that a nice problem to have? So I started buying with my own money. I started buying single families. So I've never used hard money. I've never used private money. I've always just borrowed from the bank on a personal note myself. And then we started acquiring a little bit of accumulation of cash in addition to the properties. And so now Even though I could have just paid the 26,000 for that house down on the river, I decided to use a credit card at 0% interest because now I'm in that groove of using someone else's money. I don't want to use my own money. I always want to use someone else's money. So I used the bank's money yet again. It was a Discover card, by the way. I bought a house on a Discover card. Who does that? And, and so now it's paid off and I paid 0 interest. So somebody else's money. And so now the fun part is that we can fund our own purchases, again, depending on the purchase price. I can't go out and buy, the $600,000 house, but I can go out like Ethan, I can cast my net a little wider and I can buy a $50,000 house or a $75,000 house and I can fund it myself. I don't even have to go to the bank these days. But again, I don't want to fund it out of my savings because my mother instilled in me that I needed to hang on to that retirement money at my age. And so now I actually just pull lines of equity, a line of credit out of my properties and to buy more properties. So we're kind of funding our own at this point. And that feels kind of good from where I started from, working a minimum wage job at age 40. So you guys that are younger have definitely a leg up on me, but it's possible. Just simply start. Pay attention. You see my name in my little Hollywood square here. You can find me anywhere online. If you just Google Kathy Benner, you'll find me. Contact me. You can find me at kathybenner.com. That's the easiest place to find me. But contact me if you have any questions, or if you just find something and you want to run it past me. You can get in touch with Ethan. Ethan, what was your contact information again?
RedDoorEquities.com, and it's Ethan@RDEquities would be my email.
All right, perfect. So pay attention. And if you have questions, get in touch with one of us because our goal is to see you take your next best step, whatever that is for you, to have that financial freedom. Because I don't know about you, but I hate being financially strapped. If any of us have ever been in that it takes over your life because you can't really function on having any kind of fun or any kind of a life if you're financially strapped because you're worried or consumed with how you're going to pay the rent or the mortgage at the end of the month, and you really can't go out and enjoy yourself. And I don't know about you either, but I hate counting my pennies to buy pizza on a Friday night. And if I want to do something, I want to, and again, I'm not extravagant, but I don't want to have to struggle just to do something for fun. So start, everybody. Call us if you have any questions. Tune in every month, the third Monday at noon. Just start in on July and go through the series of finding, funding, fixing, flipping, filling, and then finally, what is your freedom number? And it doesn't have to be Jesse's 72 doors. It doesn't have to be Ethan's, 50 doors. I have 28 doors and I'm relatively content. So it doesn't have to be super big numbers. Doesn't have to be, especially if you're still working. So with that, I want to say thank you for being on today. Put us on your calendar and we will see everyone next time.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Have a
Thank
good
you.
day.
Thank you.
Have a good one. Bye.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.